The use of military force justified on human rights or humanitarian grounds has raised very significant reputational problems for the United States and its credibility in pursuing human rights in this way, and has also generated actual human rights harms. To begin with, one of the biggest problems is that the Washington policy elites and the administration tend to be very unilateral in their approach to human rights policy. Allies who are engaging in human rights abuses or who are engaging in practices that undermine democracy are treated in one bucket, and adversaries are treated in another. So our human rights advocacy strategy tends to be focused disproportionately on countries that are adversaries, while we fail to use a range of policies that are available to us to ameliorate practices amongst our allies where we would actually have more leverage. Sanctions have had an extraordinarily deleterious effect on the human rights of civilian populations when they're imposed in the ways that the United States has tended to do unilaterally or in ad hoc coalitions of allies. Sanctions that have the practical effect of cutting governments off from their capacity to engage in financial transactions are very suspect from a human rights perspective. There may be other reasons that US policy elites want to justify economic sanctions or the use of kinetic force, but to claim that these are policies or strategies that can effectively promote or protect human rights is simply not plausible. Restraint means first relying much less on military force. That would be very much in the service of human rights. Engaging in military intervention or the use of coercive economic tools less would itself have a net positive effect for human rights globally. And the United States could do much more to address places where its own direct actions have resulted in human rights harms, whether it's drone strikes, whether it's our counterterrorism policies, whether it's alliances with repressive regimes that have resulted in human rights crimes in those domestic settings, or whether it's the kind of damage that's been wrought broadly on states that have been on the receiving end of US interventions in the last 25 years. And I would say to those who would like to see civilian human rights protected across the board, I would suggest that they turn their attention to the places that are genuinely generating the most severe crises, and these are climate change, conflict-driven migration, the current global food crisis, and many other areas. Human rights advocacy should really embrace a posture of restraint with respect to foreign policy in the United States, relying far more heavily on other tools in our foreign policy arsenal, especially diplomatic tools and those related to engagement as opposed to coercion.